Phyllis Pieri, a franchise expert with over 40 years in the industry, who is here to help you unleash your franchise dreams. Join Phyllis on Fierce Females in Franchising, the podcast dedicated to showcasing the power and success of women in franchising, as she interviews badass female founders with inspiring stories, chatting with savvy franchisees about their franchising journeys, and bringing in industry experts to share their top tips for franchise success. Franchising may be the best kept secret in town, but we're here to spill the beans and show you the endless possibilities that franchising has to offer. So, if you're ready to take charge, kick some franchise butt, and become the ultimate franchise queen, then tune in to Fierce Females in Franchising, and let's get started.
Welcome everybody, Phyllis Pieri here, and I am super excited to have Shelly Sun with me today. Shelly Sun is the founder and BrightStar Group Holdings, Inc., the parent company of BrightStar Care, BrightStar Senior Living, and BrightStar Care Homes. BrightStar Care provides medical and non-medical home health care and medical staffing services. Shelly founded BrightStar Care in 2002 in the Chicagoland area from the ground up and expanded it through franchising in 2005. Today, BrightStar Care has more than 365 franchised and corporate-owned locations nationwide, while employing 15,000 caregivers and 5,700 registered nurses who oversee the care and safety of each individual client. From day one, BrightStar Care has existed to provide senior and those in need of home care services with the full continuum of care. On the franchise front, we achieve a number of prestigious accolades this year. For the 13th consecutive year, we made the Entrepreneur Franchise 500 list and Inc.'s 5,000 fastest growing private companies in America list, which according to Inc., we have a 3-year revenue growth of 89%. We also ranked on Franchise Business Review top franchise list, the Franchise Times top 400 list of 2022, and were named a top women-centered business by Global Franchise Magazine. Shelly, welcome to my show. I am so excited that you are here.
So glad to be here and so good to see you again, Phyllis.
Oh, it's so much fun. And I don't know why our names aren't appearing, but oh well, we'll just get going anyway. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and put the URL for your company here so that people will be able to find your website. So Shelly, one of the goals I have for my show, there you are. One of the goals I have for my show is to hear your founder story, because I think founder stories are really powerful. So if you'd be so kind to share your founder story with us, I would love to hear it. And I know that it has a lot of heart.
It'd be my pleasure. So in late 2001, I was helping my soon-to-be new family. I was engaged at the time, look for care for Grandma Pat. She was suffering with stage 3 cancer, started to not be able to do things on her own. So she needed personal care, non-medical care, but she also was trying to manage the pain. And so she needed injections that only a nurse could provide. And so medical care. And it was amazing to me, making as many phone calls as I did on behalf of the family, to find a company that could provide the services that we needed, that there was not at the time one company that did both non-medical and medical. And so we had to manage over 2 different agencies that were doing parts of the services, which was that much more complicated. And I also was really surprised that we were willing to pay more for a higher quality experience, more dependability, more heart.
Yes.
And all we found was someone wanting to quote a moderate price and get us off the phone. And at that time, you could pay more and be in a different seat on an airline, eat at a different restaurant, shop at a different store, have a different cup of coffee, but you couldn't spend more to have a different healthcare experience with something so personal. In March of 2002, the day before my ex-husband and I got married, Grandma Pat passed away. And I was working in corporate America at an organization that, because of World Trade Center losses, it was in the aviation industry, was going to shut down. And I was able to negotiate a larger severance by staying on, kind of being the one that shut it down. I had a unique set of skills to do that. And so I had this nest egg and this family consumer experience and this passion to make a difference and
Mm-hmm.
help other families that are probably going through the same exact journey that we had gone through have a much better experience. But I'm not a clinician by background. I'm an accountant by background, but I'm an accountant and good with numbers and scaling businesses and leading
Mm-hmm.
teams. But I've always been a hugger, and you know that about me, right?
Yes, I do know that about you.
So I have a big heart and have, a lot of empathy. And so putting those things together, I didn't know what I didn't know, but I spent the summer of 2002 going and talking to hospital discharge planners and physicians and nurses in the community and other families that might be, having their parents or grandparents go through this aging journey that we had. And I thought that I was onto something. And so I gave myself, 6 months to make it work. And if not, I'd go back to
Mm-hmm.
corporate America. And we were very fortunate. We did tap into something that there wasn't another company doing non-medical and medical, and arguably with as much passion, resilience, heart as we were
Mm-hmm.
willing to put into it. And so the families that we interacted with in the first few months really saw something unique and different with us and gave us a chance. And you like to say the kind of the rest is history. I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
I would franchise it. I had an opportunity in 2004 to go to new owner and new manager training at Choice Hotels with
Oh,
my
interesting.
my mother-in-law then at the time.
Uh-huh.
And because we had made an investment, she invested 75%, we invested 25% of what
Mm-hmm.
we had built up in profits from our first 2 years of our own company owned locations. By that time, we had 3 company owned locations. And I sat in training and I'm like, I totally could franchise our business model.
Totally.
And if
Yeah.
I could, that's more moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas we could take care of in a way
Mm-hmm.
that they deserve that I didn't believe existed in the industry. And so
Mm-hmm.
at the time I was pregnant with our twin boys and went on bed rest. And so I did our operations manuals while sitting in bed rest.
Only
Uh,
women are able to do these kind of things, I swear.
and
That's
kind of then
fabulous.
we launched our franchise in 2005.
Yep. Oh, that's fantastic. It's so interesting. I often say to clients that everything you've done to this point brings you to where you are today, and you get to use all of that experience.
Very
So,
much.
so tell them a little bit more about, because you have a very strong financial background. And that's one of the things that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that that's one of the areas, one of your great strengths is really being all about the numbers. Because I remember going to a discovery day at your office,
Mhm.
and we were talking, and you were talking about your vision, because you always had a big vision about where you wanted the company to go. And the thing that I loved and the thing I always remembered is you said, my franchise owners are going to make so much money that they're going to need tax shelter. And I know that was one of the reasons that you have expanded, which we will talk about. But share with the audience where your financial background really has played a strong component in the success of your business, I believe.
Yeah, I think background in holding people accountable through key performance
Mm,
indicators, to me that's kind of the
mhm,
heart of franchising, because we
mhm,
need to help our franchisees understand what are the critical few key performance indicators that if they focus on and do well at, they'll have a successful and thriving business. And then they
mhm,
need to be able to take that down to what are the few measurements that they measure each of their key team members. And if they're doing those things, they'll be hiring enough personnel, they'll be delivering a great customer experience, they'll be delivering great clinical outcomes. And
mhm.
so, and the whole business model works. And so that background, I think my background in finance has helped me. I often hear a lot of women founders have difficulty raising capital or
Mhm,
procuring debt. And
mhm.
I think the fact that I could speak the same language as our bankers
Yes.
as we've evolved has allowed me to be able to tap into the capital that we've needed, because I still own 100% of my equity. So being able to tap into debt financing as we've needed to invest to grow and scale has been
Mhm.
really helpful to have that financial background. So I am a CPA by background, and I've had a
Right.
lot of, accounting kind of jobs up and through probably my mid to late 20s. And then I started progressing into more leadership because I had a natural talent in developing people.
Mhm.
They
Yes.
were inspired by my leadership. I could get the most out of them. I could drill it down to a critical few, what they needed to do to be successful. And I had no problem having the difficult conversations when they weren't delivering, to tell them how they weren't delivering, what they needed to do to improve, and coach them up. And then if it wasn't going to fit, to help them out of a bad situation, us out of a bad situation, and help them exit. So I think that leadership, those leadership roles at scale, what were equally beneficial, thinking about the scale of a franchise brand. I had managed hundreds of people in the roles I was in before becoming a franchisor. And some
Mm-hmm.
franchisors have never operationally managed that size and scale. And so I think it's
Mm-hmm.
knowing the numbers, knowing the metrics, and making sure you're scaling the infrastructure and having the
Yes.
capital to do it while you're scaling the number of units and the revenue, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes the units come first and you don't have the revenue to pay for infrastructure. And so it's kind of a leap of faith to make
Mm-hmm.
sure if you're going to sell it, you need to be able to support it, which means you're going to put the infrastructure in before your royalties grow to the point where that makes sense. And so those
Right.
first 4 years of franchising, typically if a franchisor is building the right infrastructure to give the right level of support, they're upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's years 5 and thereafter that starts to make sense. And so I think I do, to your point, think that the financial background and feeling comfortable about numbers and key performance indicators has helped me a lot in scaling and leading our business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think so too. And I know you've written a book, and I have your book, and I don't. So I had a leaky wall, and I'm having construction done. So I don't have your book in front of me. I'm very embarrassed to tell you that, because I want you to tell our audience the name of your book so they can go get it. If they're thinking about franchising their business,
Yeah.
which is one of the ways I help people, I would love, and I always recommend your book. I'd love for them to, consider buying it, because and I love the reason you wrote it. So why don't you share with our audience why you decided to write the book?
Absolutely. So Grow Smart, Risk Less, and it is on Amazon. I've given most of the proceeds over the years back to the industry because I give the books away and it allows that to kind of be done. But I wrote it because we were on Undercover Boss in 2012, and I knew we were going to be on Undercover Boss. And I have a hard time saying no to people because I just
Mm-hmm.
want to help people be able to grow or reach their goals. But there was no way I was going to be able to do that with hundreds or thousands of people that would see the show. And so
Right.
the book for me was a way of saying, read the book first if you're thinking about franchising your business. And then if you still have questions and you'll do the agenda, I'll spend
Mm-hmm.
time with you. But that way it made them have to spend a certain number of hours getting through the book and learning the basics before I
Mm-hmm.
was going to spend the time.
Okay, that makes really good sense. And, as you know, lots of people are turning their businesses into franchising. And, the reason that I having this podcast, and the reason I call it Fierce Females, is that I really believe that women in this country don't get it. They don't understand the wonderful things that franchising offers. And I want to get out to more women to have them take a look at franchising and realize it's a really great way for them to have a new future and to have a new life and not feel like they're stuck in corporate America.
Mm-hmm.
So, what would you say is one of the most rewarding moments that you've had over the years?
Oh, there's been so many. I think having the opportunity to highlight the amazing heart of our caregivers on Undercover Boss was certainly one. I think that leading a home care company in 39 states with 39 different states regulations during the early parts of the pandemic,
Wow.
well, it still gives me PTSD to think about. But, in late 2020, there was a study published, an article published of all of those on the front line that rated the CEOs and how they handled the pandemic. And that's
Mm-hmm.
our frontline workforce. I mean, those are the amazing men and women that are
Mm-hmm.
in our clients' homes on a daily basis. And there were 25 CEOs that were called out on Glassdoor as doing a great job, the most highly rated in leading through the pandemic. I was the only woman. And there was no other home
Wow.
care company, and there were 4 healthcare adjacent, but we were the only
Mm-hmm.
home care company, and I was the only woman. And so
Wow.
that's probably something I'm the most proud of because,
Yes.
we take care of a very vulnerable population with our
Mm-hmm.
seniors and high-tech pediatric. I needed to keep our workers safe so they could keep our clients safe. And so, beginning in mid-February, before it was really a thing, and before the world kind of shut down,
Mhm.
I'm a Young Presidents Organization member. I was calling in favors and calling contacts all over the globe, sourcing PPE from 7 different countries. We put $2.3 million of our balance sheet to work so we could get PPE,
Wow.
100,000 N95 masks so that we could get that out to our franchisees, to get to our caregivers, to make sure that they were safe, because
Mhm.
nothing else mattered, is making sure they were safe.
Sure.
Profit doesn't mean anything if people's lives are not saved.
That's right.
I'm still very mission focused and have been since the very beginning. So PPE was very important to me, and that hard work and those sleepless nights and lots of stress was kind of validated
Mm.
in the fact that our frontline staff of the brand realized what we did and how we led during
Mhm.
a really difficult time in a very difficult industry to lead well.
Mhm. It's interesting because when the pandemic hit, I had moved to California because I became a Grammy. And
Aw.
so I was living down here, and my kids were actually with me at the time during the pandemic, which, people were struggling, and I was, having fun playing with my grandbaby and
Mhm.
working too. But I got active in my local community here in Mission Viejo. By the way, you have a great franchise owner here in Mission Viejo. I was looking up BrightStar, and of course, she popped right up, or he, whatever. But anyway, I was on these Zoom meetings, or Zoom chamber meetings, and I was watching these people scrambling, trying to figure out how to do everything. And I looked at all these people, and all I could think to myself was, I'm sorry you're not a franchise, because you'd have other people that would really care and want to help you. And I know that our industry absolutely worked 24/7 to help all of their owners and everybody do the very best that they could.
Absolutely.
So I think that, I know in my experience, having been in the industry for 40 years and doing the consulting part for 20, I know that statistically, when people typically think franchising, they think food. And yet, most people, one, don't qualify for food, or when they look at what food really means, it's not really what they want to do. So, that's another reason why I'm on this quest and this mission to open people's eyes to why they really should be considering franchising as more of an opportunity.
Completely agree.
So, Shelley, let's talk a little bit about your senior care facilities that you have now.
So we did start our senior care facilities. We started the first one back in 2014. We have 4 of them now that are larger. That became challenging during the pandemic
Oh,
because poor quality control and horrific stories and bad government policy in New York and Washington state, with many people dying in the larger communities. Having larger communities became more difficult to fill them and expensive with supply chain
mhm.
and inflation to build them. So we have pivoted from our larger property. I love the ones we have. They're beautiful. We provide absolutely great care. We have 2 in Wisconsin with Jeff and Susan. I think my franchisees there, and they're always
Nice.
so visible and amazing. And then in Indiana, we have one, and in Ohio, we have one. So we kind of focus on the Midwest. The ones in Indiana and Ohio, I own. The intent was to sell them to a franchisee once they reached a certain threshold.
Mhm.
And then coming through the pandemic with increasing costs and larger setting, stigma potentially, we pivoted. So that's BrightStar Senior Living. We pivoted to Star Care Homes, which is probably what you got a chance to kind of get a little bit more exposed to on our offering. And so our care homes is like 10 to 12 residents and in a neighborhood, right? And so it's
Mhm.
much more approachable. The cost increases of supply chain haven't impacted it enough to make it not viable. It's doing a lot
Mhm.
of good. With labor shortages being what they are, you're kind of 2 caregivers to 10 or 2 caregivers to 12. So kind of a
Mhm.
1 to 5, 1 to 6 ratio. So
Mhm.
you get some economies of scale that way, while still doing a great thing for many families.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that is kind of thinking back, I did believe if we did the right things, we selected the right franchisees, and they followed the model, our franchisees would grow to build wealth, and then what do the wealthy people in America do? You think about multi-generational
Mhm.
Pritzker family, they hold their money
Yep.
in real estate. And there's a lot of tax advantage reasons for doing that. And
Yep.
so how did I
Of
think of a
course.
brand to help our franchisees that were successful on the BrightStar Care side also think about something that was in their portfolio, still part of the brand and doing good, but it's real estate based. And so it was senior living
Mhm.
first, and now we've kind of pivoted more intensely into BrightStar Care homes. We think that there still might be, opportunity with BrightStar Senior Living as maybe more hotel operators feel like they have overbuilt and want to multi-purpose them, or
Mhm.
change them to in their construction, depending on the brand, could be well aligned for an assisted living,
Mhm.
memory care type of offering. But from a build from scratch, we're really focused on the care home size, smaller investment. Yeah. And we are seeing great success with that. We have, discovery days every month, 7 to 10 folks
Nice.
through. A lot of our existing franchisees looking at it as part of kind of what I envision with a kind of a wealth
Mhm.
creation, wealth retention strategy. And then
Mhm.
we've seen people from outside thinking that already are doing other things or have had success. Same thing. They want to own real estate, and this becomes an opportunity for them to have real estate that
Mhm.
they know they can cover the cost of that, and yet it will probably continue to appreciate. So they have the appreciation kind of set to the side, and then they have an operating model that can be profitable. So
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's really brilliant. I know. So has the franchisee, the ideal candidate, has that changed at all? I know I always, when I do consultations, I always talk to people about the senior space. And typically, I know I learned from you, it's finding someone who's had the experience that really, like you, wants to make a difference and offer that to other people. Is
yeah,
that still typically what people are drawn to?
I think you still need to have the passion and understand the need. So you do things in the right way.
Mhm.
Uh, and so we are looking for that. We're looking for cultural alignment with our franchisees as to what
Mhm.
we do. Because, owning a business, it's not all going to be rainbows, right? There's going to be
Right.
tough days. And if you're not passionate about what we do, I mean, I've been doing this 20 years. I still love it. I still am
Mhm.
excited to get to work every single day. We have an opportunity to do such good every single day, but
Yep.
I'm passionate about what we do. And I think if I had chosen something I wasn't passionate about, I wouldn't still be excited to get to work 20 years later. So I think that is important. I think the background and the skills and the scale that we look for in a franchisee has evolved. I think in the first few years,
Mhm.
before we had a brand that was more recognized, we needed someone who
Mhm.
was a brute force salesperson and
Yeah.
was out in the community growing revenue. And then I think as our brand, has been on national TV since 2014, as the brand is more recognized and we're top 3 aided awareness, so top 3 brand most recognized in our
Wow.
space, it means that we don't need someone who has to be the brute force sales, but we need a great
Mhm.
operator and probably a great
Mhm.
leader of people and
Mhm.
scaler of operations, because
Mhm.
so much is changing in healthcare. And I think that's true right now. I think we've gone through 3 transitions. It was a salesperson initially, and then there's an ops
Mhm.
person, and now it's a scaler and someone who's good with change management, probably still
Mhm.
operations kind of underneath it. But
Mhm.
healthcare is changing so rapidly. COVID has accelerated what's going to be done in the home. I think it'd be
Mhm.
very difficult to be part of a brand and only be doing companion care, personal care, as most of my competitors do. I think at
Mhm.
scale, we were smart to combine
Yes.
non-medical and medical from the very beginning. It's higher cost to operate, but it had to be in our agreement from the very beginning, because otherwise you don't have the ability. I remember having the honor to meet Paul Hogan when I was a brand new franchisor, like in 2007, and I went up and I asked Paul, and I said, Mr. Hogan, my board is kind of concerned. Like, if you decided that Home Instead wanted to go do skilled care in all markets,
Mhm.
you could squash me like a bug. Should I be worried about that? And he goes, young lady, how many franchises do you have? 7. And he goes, I have nearly 700. So
Yeah.
imagine if I didn't have in their agreement from the beginning that they had to make that investment. What percent of them do you think I
Mm.
could convince to go spend $100,000 they didn't originally agree to?
That's
I would
right.
harm our brand that might be one of the best known in companion care. You'd have different service offerings in all markets because we didn't kind of have that as the offering from day one. And it was a really good perspective. And so I
Mhm.
really spent time thinking more broadly about our franchise disclosure document from the very beginning as to, as the industry evolves, even if I'm not doing it today, what do I need to retain the rights for? Like I retained the rights for a national account program.
Mhm.
Even when I was brand new, I wasn't a national brand. I didn't really
Right.
launch a national accounts team until 2008. Started franchising in
Mhm.
2005, but it's 30% of our franchisees' revenue now. So our franchisees have to execute, but 30% of their business they don't have to go get. They don't have to procure.
Nice.
We let
Yeah.
them fulfill it. But that's because we do non-medical and medical. So I think now we need franchisees that are able to lead through change because so many things
Mhm.
are changing. More
Yes.
things are moving into the home. Medicare Advantage now pays for some of the services we provide. So
Mhm.
payer, client, breadth of services is all changing so rapidly. And we don't want to be blockbuster. I say that
Right.
to franchisees a lot right now because, Medicare Advantage doesn't pay as much as private pay,
Mhm.
but if Medicare Advantage is going to pay for, 80 hours of care and it helps a senior's budget go further, and
Yeah.
we're in the trust business, we're not earning that trust to charge them privately for something that government will pay for. And
That's
so
right.
it's kind of going back to the days where the franchisees of the Blockbuster brand, and that was a franchise system too, didn't want to
Mhm.
evolve to give up late fees, even though
Yep.
they knew their customer hated it. And now they're no longer in business. So
Mhm.
our customers, I believe, would hate paying privately for something that their Medicare Advantage plan would pay for. And so
Mhm.
therefore we have to adapt and meet the needs
Yes.
of our customer and then charge them what we need to charge them for the private pay hours that are over and above their government benefit. But we need to
Mhm.
be there and help them access their government benefit as part of a holistic solution. So that
Yeah.
ability to change, be nimble, lead their teams through change and embrace
Mhm.
it is a
Mhm.
really important component of the franchisees we're looking for today.
That's fantastic. I love that. Yeah. I'm the executor for a friend of mine from the state of Washington. She has nobody. She has no family, nothing. And so I'm her executor, and she's in a group home. And I love the franchising. I placed Rob Young in Oasis Senior. Yeah. It's a franchise where they
Mhm.
help people find a place to live. So I place him in the franchise and then I call him up and say, I need your services. And he was able to find a lovely home for my friend to stay in, a 6-bed place. And it's just a little home. She has dementia and it's very sad, but at least I know she's in a very safe place. I'm going to run a banner here real quick on your book so that people know the name of it. So I want you to go to Amazon and I want you to buy Shelly's book. But I also want you to go to Amazon and buy my little book. So I decided it's literally an itty bitty book. It's paragraphs and bullet points. And the reason I wrote it is that I wanted to have something that people could get an overall idea of what franchising is all about. So I think it does a really good job. It's truly the cliff notes of franchising.
Do I get an autographed copy, Phyllis?
Of course you do. I wanted to ask you one other question. So tell me about one of your successful female owners, because I would love to have one of them on my show so that women can get another idea of what it's like to be a franchisee.
We have so many. We have nearly 50% of our franchisees are 50% or more owned women.
Nice.
So that's pretty amazing.
That is
Uh,
pretty amazing.
we've got a female in Southern California, so probably not too far from you, Karen Abe, who's really amazing and growing and expanding and looking at multiple brands, looking at multiple territories. I probably could get you a long list. We've got a long list of really amazing female franchisees. Caroline Moore is one of our franchisees in Idaho. She came and toured our BrightStar Senior Living large community, had access to our operations manuals for BrightStar Senior Living, and she took that, even ahead of the pandemic and said, I'd like to use this intellectual property, but would you allow me to do something that's a smaller scale, like 8 to 10
Mhm.
rooms, which is what became our care homes. And so we
Mhm.
did an addendum to her franchise agreement because otherwise she wouldn't have been able to, because we have a
Mhm.
non-compete for anything that's serving seniors, regardless of setting. And so we said, sure, we'll let you, pilot that. And so we did
Mhm.
an addendum to her franchise agreement. And she now has, I believe, 6 homes open and operating, or maybe another 2 under construction or development. And so,
Oh,
and
good for
now,
her.
yeah, very cool. And now she's started helped us like do visits there when we do our discovery day and pops in for the training class for those that are kind of joining the BrightStar Care Homes brand. And so that's really cool to see kind of the innovation, taking something that was ours,
Yes.
adapting it to something that would fit what she could invest in, because
Mhm.
BrightStar Senior Living is like a $6 to $8 million investment.
Yep.
BrightStar Care Homes is like $1 to $1.5 million if
Yep.
you own the real estate, and probably 300 to 400,000 if you don't own the real estate. So
Mhm.
became much more approachable. So kind of great collaboration. Our initial intellectual property, our help with marketing, the BrightStar Care brand kind of helps fill the communities because we're known and advertising in all markets across the country, but a great collaboration of in allowing for some innovation that has made the overall brand and family of brands stronger.
Wonderful. Well, that's the thing I love about, I keep saying I love about franchising, but again, here's an opportunity. There's two things that came out of that I thought about. One is, Shelly, I love the fact that you live in a world of abundance and not of scarcity. So you didn't get afraid when she came to you and wanted to do that. Instead, you embraced it, so that living in abundance. And also that we know that some of the best ideas come from franchise owners. And
Absolutely.
I think people get the idea that if they get into a franchise, they're going to have their hands tied behind their back. And that's not the case at all.
It's not, but we still need to have consistency across the brand.
Yeah.
And I talk to a lot of franchisors right now that franchisees were a little bit more autonomous going through the pandemic. Conferences didn't
Mhm.
occur, became a little bit more like the Wild Wild West than you would want your
Mhm.
brands to be. And so I think a lot of franchisors, and us included, are kind of getting back to a compliance consistency initiative to make sure
Mhm.
our customers can count on a consistent experience in all markets. And so I think there's a balance between
Mhm.
having high standards for consistency, but enabling some innovation in a defined structure of
Mhm.
piloting.
Mhm.
And I think that's where you can live in abundance while still protecting me, the franchisor, millions and millions and millions of dollars of intellectual property. I can't let
Yes.
a franchisee go rogue, right?
No,
But
not at all.
I need to keep them within, and like, what's the structure where I can let them pilot within something that works for them and works for me? And if it's really
Mhm.
successful, how do you enable that to go across the entire brand? Um,
Yes.
and if it's not, should it continue with that one franchisee or get shut down? And what are the
Mhm.
pre-agreements to that? But I try to enable, but I want it coming within my brand. And I'd rather be within my brand than outside of
Yes.
my brand.
So what does the future hold for BrightStar? Do you have other things in the pipeline that you're developing, or are you pretty satisfied with the three legs that you looks like
I'm
you
never
have now?
satisfied. You've known me for so long. I'm never satisfied. I'm happy, but I'm not satisfied. I think there's always more good we could be doing, and that motivates me. And I think healthcare
Mhm.
is changing a lot right
A
now.
lot. Yeah.
Um, and I think things are moving in terms of reimbursement. More is going to be reimbursed based upon the outcomes that are achieved,
Mhm.
improving healthcare versus just being paid an hourly rate, regardless of how well you do and how satisfied customers are and what outcomes
Mhm.
they have received. And so I think for us, we're buying back a good portion of our franchisees right now.
Are you
We
really? Oh,
yeah,
that's
we
interesting.
yeah, so about 18 months ago, we had 3 company-owned stores. We now have over 30. So we're about 10% of revenues and our company owned. I think we'll get to 15 to 20%. So we'll still always be majority franchise, but I
Mhm.
think it's enabling us in like 7 different states, because it's difficult to just say we're only in the Midwest, and some franchisees in Florida or California or Arizona or whatever don't think we know and understand their business. And
Yep.
as we want to do pilots on value-based care where we're willing to not be paid as much up front and get some incentives on the back end, if we
Mhm.
believe that's where it's going, we need to put our balance sheet at risk, learn it, fine tune it before we can roll it out to franchisees. And I wouldn't have the size and scale to do those partnerships and be expecting franchisees to do it on their balance sheet. So we are doing it on ours. And with 30 locations and this number of
Nice.
states, it gives us an ability to do that, try out new technology, try out new marketing,
Yes.
try out new, value-based care kind of reimbursements. All of those things are things that we are working on. And that kind of gets me excited for the future, because I do think
Mhm.
Medicare Advantage will be a bigger part of our payer mix. I do think we'll be paid more on the results we get versus the hours we deliver.
Mhm.
We need to be the example for that and learn, fine tune, and then roll it out to our franchisees. But we're going to have our franchisees do those things but I need to show them how and what's
Nice.
the upside and what's the downside. So company owned is part of a strategy to ultimately better our franchisees, but we're heavily involved in it on the company owned store level right now. In 2 years, I hope we're rolling out value-based care and Medicare Advantage at scale to our franchisees.
Nice. So will those company stores be geographically around the country?
And I'm risking a lot because I own 100% of them. I've tried to go into employer-friendly states.
Oh, well, I bet you're not here, Shelly.
I'm not in California. As a company owned. And I started in Illinois, and that's, not necessarily an employer-friendly state either. So we'll grow probably in Illinois, but we've added states that are generally neutral to employer-friendly. So we're in Wisconsin. We actually just bought Jeff Two's and Susan Rather's home care business. So
Wow.
And they are the dearest of friends and coming to my wedding next year. And I only have a handful of franchisees coming to my wedding, but Jeff and Susan,
sweet.
it warms my heart. I was there when we told their employees. They cried, I cried.
Oh,
I've known their team for a long time, so I'm very proud of that. But we're in Florida, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Arizona. So we are trying to take somewhat a coast-to-coast approach, but in the states where we're not taking on an abundance of risk while we're trying to learn and do good and enable our franchisees to grow and scale. So that's one thing I'm really excited about. The other thing we're trying to do is help our franchisees that are living our core values, have the infrastructure, have the leadership capabilities, grow and scale. And so we offered incentives to franchisees to take on additional investments in additional territories in the second half of 2022. And we had 17 franchisees commit to 28 territories.
nice.
So we're growing with our existing franchisees.
Fantastic.
So we can hopefully help them think about some ways to centralize some functions. Inflation's affecting the bottom line of franchisees, right?
Yeah.
So how can we think outside the box of growing revenue, diversifying revenue, but also helping them reduce cost with, if they're at certain scale, some centralization models, some better vendor negotiations, some better utilization of technology that makes sense at scale, that might not make sense on an individual location.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, Shelly, this has been so much fun. It's so great to see you. I wish I could hug you.
Virtual hug.
Yes. You have to let me know if you come to California.
I will, absolutely.
I would love to see you. I notice your marketing people are in California, so maybe you have to go to their office or something. Anyway, but thank you very much, Shelly. I so appreciate everything you've done and everything that you continue to do.
Thank you.
And I look forward to hopefully seeing you maybe at next year's convention. Who knows?
I hope so.
Me
Thanks,
too.
Phyllis.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Fierce Females in Franchising. We hope you feel inspired by the stories and insights shared by our amazing female franchise founders and franchisees. Don't forget to tune in next week for another episode filled with valuable advice, motivation, and a good dose of fun. And if you're ready to take the leap and explore franchising for yourself, head to our website for more information and resources. Remember, franchising is the best kept secret in town, and we're here to help you unlock its endless possibilities. So stay fierce, stay curious, and keep crushing those goals.